This is Dr. Marty Lerman. We're bringing you mental wellness. And I'd like to welcome everybody to our program this morning. We are focusing on lots of interesting things, moving away from some of the crisis stuff that we've been dealing with, trying to figure out how people are going to settle in to whatever the new normal is going to be, with hopefully not a resurgence of the virus coming back at us. And as we're doing that, we're also trying to promote some mental wellness concepts and ideas that we can present to people in a way that has meaning and purpose to them, as well as to understand that we are in a unique kind of situation in which we are actually able to start introspectively looking at ourselves with a little more depth, perhaps, than what we've grown accustomed to, because we're focusing on things that seem to really matter in the real world. Things like fairness and racial justice and social justice and criminal justice, as well as being understanding that what we're experiencing within our families and relationships is also open for change. And as we continue to move forward with that, we want to present some positive ways of helping people move through their lives. And in order to do that, obviously, we have to be able to present information, which is what the intent of the program is. And in that regard, I'm really happy that Shannon Mosher has come back again. I was going to say by popular demand, but I don't want to overstate the obvious. If you were with us a month ago, Shannon was with us and we were talking about how to use emojis with kids, looking at the homeschooling situation that lots and lots of parents found themselves in because of the virus. And looking at alternatives for how parents can feel more effective interacting with their kids, how they can take on the role of being kind of like teachers when they may not have that preparation or that ability, and to make the experience of their kids a little bit more meaningful too as they're learning and growing and hopefully understanding themselves in the middle of a crisis. What we've also done is to take a broader look at the whole issue of how people can actually navigate and be able to get through traumas and fears and stress in a way that can be effective and quick, since we know that the use of medications is extraordinarily limited, if not totally ineffectual for most people. So we don't want to resort to that as a first resort. In most cases, it's not even an effective last resort. But what we're dealing with is the idea that people have the ability to look inside themselves for answers. And we've been doing it for thousands of years. And we find ourselves now in a place where it becomes even more critical, because a lot of us are going through social isolation and we're going through lots of changes that happen rapidly. For a lot of people, change is not a good friend. Change is something that produces anxiety all by itself, because it creates uncertainty and lack of predictability in some cases, as well as a fear that underlies the whole thing, because we don't know where the limits are or where the boundaries are. So I want to welcome Shannon to our show, and happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about a program of understanding that she's been working on, and I've been collaborating with her on, that's identifying a strategy for how we can help people in a relatively short amount of time. And yes, we're both clinicians. Shannon's completing her internship in mental health to be licensed, and she's also a certified hypnotherapist. And what we want to be able to do is to take a look at how we can effectively reach out to people and to give them some skills, so that not only can they get the help when they go into a crisis state or when they're over anxious or completely worried about situations, but to also give them something very positive they can work with, they can learn from, and then apply, which is kind of different than most directions of a lot of traditional kind of psychotherapies. Because what we want to be able to do is empower people not only to make a single change about a single situation that they're working on, but to also be able to generalize it to lots of other situations, so that that internal sense of security and confidence becomes a overriding awareness that people can utilize. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon. She can talk a little bit about the program that we've been developing, and then we'll kind of trade back and forth ideas. We'll provide some definitions to what it is, because we don't want people thinking that this is one of these new things that goes over people's heads. We want people to understand it is something you can utilize. You don't need a college degree for it or multiple college degrees. What you need is the ability to just kind of open your mind up to understand that what we're experiencing is something very, very positive. So Shannon, welcome, and why don't you take over and talk about what it is we're doing.
Thank you. So you're absolutely right. We are working on a treatment modality for our patients and our clients that is very rapid and effective, and it's called unconscious reality therapy. And from a technical level, unconscious reality therapy combines waking trance experience, which we'll explain, with a mindfulness-based element. And then towards the end of the phase of the work, we're leveraging parts work therapy. And we will explain all of that into detail. However, when clients come to me, they're talking to me about these roles that they have. Maybe they've developed these anxious roles, whether it stemmed from childhood or their adult life, and it's preventing them from living the life that they want to live. I'll have folks that can't even go to the grocery store because they're in fear of whatever that fear is, whether it's they see things on TV that they're afraid they're going to get hurt or harmed in some way by walking into a Walmart or more. There's a lot of fear that's out there these days, and these folks are really struggling and having a tough time with that. And I'll have other folks who maybe in their childhood they were abused, and they've developed this people-pleasing role. And what happens is, if they receive any form of criticism whatsoever about the work that they're trying to do, because in their mind they're doing everything that they can for their loved ones, and if their loved ones begin to feel entitled or start to criticize them, they deeply are hurt by this. And so much so that they start shaming and blaming internal messages and self-hate messages to themselves. Even the folks with anxiety, it's I'm crazy, or I'm defective, my brain is broken. All of these messages start to come out, and people begin to live the messages that is in their self-talk. So with unconscious reality therapy, we're leveraging the three parts that I just mentioned, and we'll explain that. But we're leveraging that to go deeper, to help the clients to really understand not only the genesis of where these thoughts came from and their core belief systems that they developed about themselves because of traumatic experiences or other experiences. And we're helping them to unearth that and really understand it. And at the end is this wonderful self-love and self-compassionate, self-healing element that we are helping our clients to learn about themselves that's naturally within them. So that way, when they're complete with therapy, they can go home and we teach them what we call self-URT, self-unconscious reality therapy. And so when they're at home, they can practice everything that they've learned in session. If they have a relapse or if they have an unwanted thought that starts to kick back in and they just can't seem to shake it, they learn these coping skills at home. And if needed, we always recommend our clients to come back for a tune-up in about a month, just to check in with those parts, to check in with how they're feeling, how they're doing, is there anything standing in the way, and we tweak that, and we give them a tune-up. And to kind of wrap this first part up, I personally had a client who had panic about her own panic. Okay, she was really unable to live her life to the fullest from the age of 14. And the situation was debilitating for her. She couldn't do things with her family. She couldn't go to the stores. She couldn't fly on planes. You name it, she couldn't do it. She would experience panic. And again, this was a 40-year-old woman who's been experiencing panic since the age of 14. And in 3 sessions, leveraging URT, unconscious reality therapy, life-changing results. And I get chills just thinking about it. And she's not the only story that I have, but she's the best story because it was very crippling for her.
You can imagine.
Yeah.
So the fear of having a panic attack created panic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of the strange phenomena we run into where we see people who over-worry, that become over-anxious, tend to become anxious about their anxiety. Or people get depressed about their depression. Or people get anxious about their depression or depressed about their anxiety. It flies all over the place because that sense of being out of control inside creates its own sense of out of controlness. So what we're looking at really is a new way of conceptualizing how our mind works by empowering the mind to heal itself.
Mhm.
So we're going to take a break in just a few minutes. Well, probably not a few minutes, maybe less than one, but we have a giant clock on the wall right now that's counting us down. It's unbelievably gorgeous. But in any event, what we want to be able to do is to really explain a little bit more in depth what we're going at, as well as to provide you contact information for how you can reach out to us, which we are going to do when we come back from the break. The emails that are coming in are really kind of fascinating. Just real quickly though, when you have issues going on about your subdivision and violations there and things you'd like help with, I'm not sure this format is really going to be too effective for you. I know we got 3 of them that came in this morning actually. They're entertaining, but we may want to redirect that in another direction. So in any event, we'll get back to some of the emails too that have come in that we can't respond to. We'll be right back. This is Doc Marty with Mental Wellness, welcoming you back to our program. I'm joined by Shannon Mosher, who is in the process of coming up with a rather well-conceived idea of how we're helping people and how we can help them more effectively. I do want to share our contact information with people. The emails which are coming in, which I'm very grateful for. To reach out to us by email, you just send it to Doc Marty, DOCMARTY 61 at email. No, you don't email, you Gmail me, and that way it'll work. And let's see, you can also reach out through our website, which is www.alliedmentalhealthtx.com. I've been spelling that whole thing forever. Alliedmentalhealthtx.com. We get that stuff. You also get an opportunity to actually see what it is that we do as far as clinical work. And there's information about how you can get things from us, whether it's recordings, whether it's signing up for workshops and different programs, as well as training things that we run through the clinic. And you can also reach out to us by contacting the station. KAR has got a nice website all to itself. It's just www.radiokar.com, and you can leave messages that way. And for Bob and Linda to make that available to us, we thank them. We thank them for putting us on the air too. So yeah, we get the one message we got last time wanting to know how much money we get paid for doing this stuff. I still chuckle about that just thinking about it, because we get nothing for this. There's no monetary thing we gain from this at all. It's just the idea that we're helping people and we're reaching out to folks and hopefully giving them some skills that they can utilize. You can catch our program. We do it several times over the radio station through the internet, and simply by going into the station that you're listening to now. There's the replay of the program on Sundays at noon, Mondays at 10 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or is that 1 in the morning? I can't remember which one that is. And then we do it obviously on Wednesday, not obviously, but Wednesdays at noon also. There's also another program that we recorded a few weeks ago to help people kind of get through this real stressful experience right now. And it was a program that I did that actually teaches people how to use progressive muscle relaxation, which is a very, very effective way of letting go of tension and stress that people accumulate through the day. It allows people to sleep, which is one of the most incredibly powerful things we have available to us, and yet we are dealing with an enormous population base right now that is sleep deprived, and all the insomniac folks that are up throughout the night because they have difficulty understanding that, noises go off a cell phone sometimes, and it'll wake you right up, especially when you think you're asleep. But beyond that, we have lots of things going on that allow us to really come back and understand what we're really wanting to understand. So the programs go out, we're on podcasts, we're on all the major platforms now. Just a matter of going in and finding us, basically. You can do that through Doc Marty Mental Wellness, or you can actually go through YouTube if you actually want to see us do this radio program, which is kind of humorous because we aren't really geared into a production of visual stuff. And you can see strange hand movements, and you can see us looking and laughing and being silly. Sunburns that we kind of regret having now. But things that, just kind of come up, you can watch us do this. And through the YouTube, it goes through the radio station. You just go into Radio KAR, I gotta do this slower, KAIR.com. And look for Doc Marty Mental Wellness. It's listed by episode numbers. We're in number 28, believe it or not. Half a year almost, more than a half a year, of what we've been doing, bringing information to you. And you can just pick that stuff up. Shannon's earlier program that we did with the emojis is also available that way. And we can just kind of take it from there. So I want to explain a little bit more about what the unconscious reality therapy actually is. I'm going to break this down really simply for folks, because the simpler it gets, the more understandable it is. The more complicated it gets, nobody understands it, including me, because there's so much involved. The URT stands for unconscious reality therapy. The unconscious part is that we want to activate the mind in a way that bypasses all the critical thinking, negative thinking process that we typically present to ourselves when we are consciously awake. That's where the negative messaging comes from. It's where that need to play devil's advocate comes from. It's where that argumentative oppositional nonsense comes from, because we think we should be in control, we think we should know answers, we think that when we're confused about something that we should be able to figure it out. And all of that thinking part gets us in trouble because it's quicksand. If we had the ability to solve those kind of problems by thinking about them, we wouldn't have the problems. The reality is that the conscious part of the mind, which regulates our cognition, is learning that comes from outside. We learn by activating our senses. We hear things, see things, taste, smell, touch things, and we learn those experiences by associating them, and it becomes part of our knowledge base consciously. That's where our logic, that's where our reasoning comes from, and that's the good stuff, because it allows us to learn from outside. When we want to learn from inside, however, cognition is not a pathway, it's an obstacle. And what we have to be able to do is to get into that part, which is where intuition is, it's where creativity is, it's where imagination is. It gives us the ability to open all of that up, so that by opening it up, we allow ourselves to create a motivating factor internally to heal. It's also the base from where our spirituality comes from. So what we want to be able to do is to bring all of that stuff to the surface while we're awake, and yet at the same time bypass the negative critical thinking part that tells us it isn't so, or there must be a different way, or we think of something that we read by somebody else, we can't even identify where it came from, but we believe it's true, therefore it must be an offset to what we're actually experiencing. So we get into a self-denial pattern where we're feeling good, but then, well, we can't feel good for too long because something bad's going to happen, we'll take it away. Or we start to find ourselves infatuated with somebody, and yet we pull away from it out of fear that something bad's going to happen because we've been told we can't have good relationships, we'll never have a good relationship. Or we end up bombing out of college because we've been told we're stupid and we're not going to make it, and we need to go get a real job and work with our hands or whatever. All that negative believing that comes from external sourcing, we believe to be true because we think it is so. So what we want to be able to do with this therapy is to get rid of that stuff by going past it. And the effective way of doing that is going to an unconscious state, which we can do in several different ways. The most effective way is by creating what we refer to as a waking trance. And it's something we experience all the time. We experience it when we daydream. We experience it when we get totally captured into a book that we're reading that we just don't want to put down. Little kids do it all the time, watching TV shows, playing video games, where you're just so into that experience that everything else seems to be out of touch. We just don't relate to it. And we end up getting called to dinner 15 times before we realize somebody's actually calling us, because our minds are captivated inside of ourselves. That is an unconscious state, and that's a waking trance, which is part of what this therapy deals with. So we get rid of the negative part that is self-defeating. Reality is nothing more than our combination of perception, understanding, learning, and beliefs. That's what represents our reality. Is it that way to everybody? No, because we know that not everybody's reality is the same. It's the reason why traffic police often interview as many people as they possibly can to witnessing a traffic accident, because we know that what you see may not be the same thing that everybody else sees, because it's being altered, it's being filtered through a knowledge system that we've already established about what we believe to be real. Each person seeing the same thing will swear to God on a stack of Bibles that what they saw is the absolute truth, and yet we discover that the person that maybe they thought did something really didn't have red hair, they weren't 6 feet tall, they were like 5'3", they were wearing red sneakers, they were wearing blue sneakers, and it's not because they're distorting reality or because they're incapable of dealing with reality, it's because their perception of the reality is different. It's based on their experience, their knowledge, their past encounters, and their perception. So we want to be able to take that reality thing and bypass the negative thoughts that go into what we believe to be real, and actually create the reality of what we know intuitively to be real, because we know our intuition doesn't lie to us. It can't distort reality. It is what we believe is actually accurate, because it's based on our beliefs. So we want to bring that to the surface, because that's the part we have to affect when we talk about change. And therapy is nothing more than an avenue. It's a forum to create a way to change. So with that in mind, we've definitionally come up to this stuff. We're also coming up to the next break we're going to take. And when we come back from the break, Shannon's going to actually understand this in a different way by presenting us the information of what this URT, this unconscious reality therapy, actually involves. So we can use that information and begin to come to an understanding of how effective this can actually be for us. So we get the break coming up. Again, if you're wanting to reach out to us, send me an email. I respond to them. Unless you have a problem with the stray dog that's running around your neighborhood, that's tearing up the garbage, and it's just not a good place to go with that. I have no idea who to reach out to other than telling you get hold of your POA people or call the police officers or somebody, constable, city council. I'm not even sure who to contact. But yeah, if we can move that into a context, we can be a lot happier. So we're going to be back in just a moment, and Shannon's going to take us a little bit deeper. This is Doc Marty, strange noise, with mental wellness, and thank you for keeping us tuned in. We're trying to present some new information to you about a therapy kind of program. It's not a kind, it is a program that Shannon has been working on, and I've been kind of working with her on to present information about a different way of experiencing something that you don't want to see, but it's something you want to experience, because in that process, people can actually find a pathway to healing from all kinds of negative messaging. So Shannon's going to explain a little bit more about the therapy program itself, so that you have an idea as to what it involves and what you might be able to gain from participating in it.
Yeah, so it's a 3-step process, and today I'll walk you through the first process, which is learning how to be mindful. I know you've probably heard the term scattered around a lot, mindfulness, and you might not know what it entails. And some people will even say, oh, I've tried mindfulness before, it doesn't work because my thoughts are all in disarray and I'll think of all of these weird things and I just can't seem to focus. And that's kind of the thing. Mindfulness is not about focusing. It's only about coming back to your body and focusing on your breath, because that's the only thing that you can control. And when you have these thoughts that are jumping in, just accepting them as thoughts or weird images, whatever pops into your brain as you're experiencing mindfulness, and then just refocusing back on your breath is really all that it is. There's a lot of science behind mindfulness, hypnosis, transcendental meditation. There's a lot of science behind this stuff. Your brain needs a break, basically, and so mindfulness is you giving yourself the brain break that you need to start experiencing life differently. So I'll walk you through a mindfulness experience today, just so you have an idea of it. And then the remaining part of unconscious reality therapy is going into what we call the parts work. And the parts work was inspired by Roy Hunter and Dr. Richard Schwartz for internal family systems. There's a lot of empirical evidence and science backed behind this approach as well. But the parts work is really, once you're in a mindfulness state, you're calm and relaxed, then the therapist is actually going through and providing some dialogue for you and activating parts of your imagination and your self-compassion, possibly taking you back to the place of the traumatic event. Not where you're re-experiencing, but where you're learning how to self-heal from it and to be there as if when you needed somebody to be there for you during that traumatic experience. You're self-loving, okay? So we're activating that part, but that's not something that we'll get into today, but it is a part of the work that kind of wraps everything up with a pretty bow tie. And just to mention something here, when the brain is in a calm state, anything that it imagines, anything that's suggested to it, the brain perceives as reality. So I don't know if you've ever woken up from a dream before and you swore it was real. You woke up the next day and you're like, oh my God, that dream was so real. You're kind of shaken from it. It's because when your brain is in that sleepy state, whatever's happening, it accepts as reality. Now, we're not instilling fear or anything when we're doing parts work, okay? That's not what we're trying to do. But we are really minimizing the negative impact of the fears, what they have on you from a mental and psychological perspective and a physiological perspective. And to go even further to that, the patients that I have that have undergone URT naturally start to feel better. They start taking care of themselves, exercising, eating better, thinking differently. They're relieved from these terrible experiences. I like to use the word bondage. I know you don't like that word too much. He really hates when I use the word bondage. But it is true. It's bondage that ties people down from living the life that they want to live. And as I mentioned earlier in the program, when you have people who are 20, 30, 40 years into their life and their entire life have been chained by this bondage and they can't live life to the fullest, now they're starting to experience a new chapter in their life, a lightheartedness. The heaviness is gone. Life is beginning for these people. And that's why I'm so passionate about this approach, because it really is life-changing. Mm-hmm. It's totally safe, and the work is just powerfully incredible. Mm-hmm. I can't say that enough. It's just incredible at a very deep spiritual level as well.
Yeah, we run into situations a lot, especially with many of the clients that we see, who are raised in an experiential awareness of being told you can't, mm-hmm. which they then internalize as I can't. I can't ride a bicycle, I can't do math, I can't write, I can't have a good relationship, I can't be successful in business, and all these I can't messages, which have no credible base to them other than a history of fulfilling the belief that I can't. Once we open that up and people can begin to see I can, and what will that be like, what will that feel like, what can I do to make that happen, we're switching it. So the I can't becomes I wonder when I can, not if I can, because that raises hope that can't be fulfilled. It's more the messaging of this is what I want to experience. Mm-hmm. I can imagine it. How do I get from my imagination to my reality, mm-hmm. and make it happen? And that becomes the process of the change.
Yeah, so let's practice this out a little bit. And those who are listening, you can practice along. You can keep your eyes open for this practice here.
Please keep your eyes open.
Please keep your eyes open, especially if you're driving. Or just go ahead and hit the pause button and listen to us later if you are driving. But this process here, this is a mindfulness-based activity that is going to take 2 to 3 minutes. It's not long, and it's just scratching the surface of what you can experience. So some of the things that you mentioned were triggers, right? So whether you're having a belief system that says that you can't, maybe you're experiencing anxiousness, maybe you're experiencing depression or pain, okay? What I want you to do is just take a nice cleansing deep breath in, count to 6 or 7, pause for 3 seconds, and then exhale. Exhaling longer than you inhaled for. And just notice your breath right now. Just breathing in, nice and natural as you normally do, and breathing out. And focus on that area in your body where you are experiencing, whether it's an unwanted sensation, maybe a memory, or a thought. Could be in your neck, in your chest, in your stomach, your throat, your head, hands, anywhere on your body. Just notice where this sensation is in your body. And just focus on that. And as you're focusing on this sensation, allow yourself to be curious about what is going on within you, and knowing that this curiosity is totally safe. And if there's other thoughts or images that are trying to jump in, just let those thoughts know that it's okay. You're going to ask them to step to the side for a moment while you focus on this sensation. And as you're focusing on that, ask yourself to have some distance from this part that is causing this unwanted tension or unwanted sensation in your body. Ask to have a little space from it thank it because it's trying to protect you from something. It's trying to protect you from something, and you want to thank it and extend gratitude towards it. And just let yourself know that even though a part of you feels anxious or feels this sadness, that not all of you feels this way. And just acknowledge that this anxiousness or depression can exist and you can still experience joy. And then just take a nice deep breath in and out and come back to the room where you're at and just notice how you feel. And that's mindfulness.
Very nice. So, as your breathing comes back into a rather nice cadence, the letting go of the tension is the part that we're working on first. Because we know that when the mind's preoccupied with what it doesn't like, it's not real receptive to dealing with what it does like, because the negative tends to overrun the positive. So what we want to be able to do by being mindful and being present allows us the opportunity to open up other parts of our mind where we can present ourselves with positive options.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I want to thank Shannon for being with us again. We will have her back, hopefully to expand even more on where we're going with this new kind of way of approaching our mind. And I also want to thank all of you for tuning in to our program and encouraging you to send us some emails, let us know how your life is going, as well as give us some ideas of things you would like for us to be pursuing, as well as sharing with other people. And we're going to get through this experience together. We're going to get through the end of a nasty, nasty pandemic, and we're going to find ourselves experiencing life differently, hopefully for the better, because we can, and that becomes our mission. So we're going to be signing off now and wishing you a terrific week and encourage you to let other people know that we do exist, and they can tune in to different times when the program is on, just simply by following where we are, either through podcasts or from the YouTube, or from tuning into the radio station, because we replay this program several times throughout the week, as well as being able to promote different ideas as well. So we're going to call it a day, and again, have yourselves a safe and very enjoyable week.
Be well.
We are signing off. Hope you learned at least one new thing, put at least one smile on your face, and are curious to find out more about your mental wellness. Tune in next time. Please share your thoughts with me by email at docmarty61@gmail.com.